Hey guys, thank you for coming to my channel. In this video, I'll be teaching you about transition words. So what is a transition word? Transition words help connect sentences and paragraphs. They help us smoothly transition to the next topic without being abrupt. There will be examples in the next few slides. Next, we have some sentences without transitions versus with transitions. So example 1, without transition word says, I hated high school. College was a great experience. As you can see, the sentence abruptly transitions from one subject to the next without a transition word. But with the transition, it says, although I hated high school, college was a great experience. So as you can see with the transition word, the sentence transitions from one topic to the next very smoothly. So example 2, without any transition word says, I got out of my last class of the day. I headed to basketball practice. Without a transition word, you can see that this sentence abruptly goes from one subject to the next. So with the transition, the sentence would say, I got out of my last class of the day and then I headed to basketball practice. And as you can see with the transition word, we transition to the next subject smoothly. So example 3, without transition words, it says, I went to the store, I drove home. Notice how without a transition word, it's just going from one sentence to the next, or one subject to the next subject. So with transition words, the sentence says, first I went to the store, then I drove home. So now you have a better understanding of the order of events. Next, I'll be discussing different types of transition words. For example, transition words of addition, transition words of cause and effect, also consequence, transition words of conclusion, order, time, emphasis, contrast, and clarification. So first we have transition words of addition like furthermore, as well as, in addition to, and so on. So example 1 says, in addition to the 2 cars I already have, I bought a new one today. As you can see, the transition, in addition to, helps the sentence flow smoothly. Example 2 says, I like fishing as well as camping. So not only do I like fishing, but I also like camping. Example 3 says, I don't like his attitude. Furthermore, I don't want him at my event. So not only do I not like his attitude, but I also don't want him at my event. Next, we have transition words of consequence, also known as cause and effect. These are transitions like as a result of, due to, consequently, and so on. So example 1 says, as a result of getting bad grades, I'm on punishment. So the bad grades were the cause, and being on punishment is the effect. Example 2 says, due to the windstorm last night, there was a power outage in the neighborhood. So the windstorm is the cause, and the effect is the power outage. Example 3 says, she rear-ended someone. Consequently, her car insurance went up. So the cause is her rear-ending someone, and the effect is her car insurance going up. Next, we have conclusion transition words like to sum it up, in conclusion, to summarize, in a nutshell, altogether, and so on. Example 1 says, to conclude this convo, don't kill people because you'll end up in prison. As you can see, the convo is coming to an end, so we're concluding what the conversation is about. Example 2 says, I read my friend's essay. To summarize what she wrote, people like ice cream more than they like candy. So pretty much I'm summarizing my friend's essay, and it's basically about people liking ice cream more than they like candy. Like, that's the whole point. Next, we have transition words of order, also time, like first or firstly, next, then, first and foremost, lastly, finally, and so on. So example 1 says, first and foremost, I'd like to introduce myself. So this basically says, before anything else, I'd like to introduce myself. Example 2 says, first I'm going grocery shopping, then I'm going to cook dinner. As you can see, I'm telling you what I'm going to do first, and then what I'm going to do after I do that thing first. Next, we have transition words of emphasis, like especially, absolutely, without a doubt, most importantly, and so on. So example 1 says, I like candy, especially gummy bears. So I like candy, but the candy that I like the most, or one of the candies I like the most, is gummy bears. So I'm emphasizing the candy that I like the most. Example 2 says, without a doubt, my favorite food is lasagna. So I'm not just saying my favorite food is lasagna, I'm adding without a doubt to place emphasis on my favorite food being lasagna. Example 3 says, be kind to others, but most importantly, treat others the way you want to be treated. So the transition words most importantly are placing emphasis on the rest of the sentence, which says treat others the way you want to be treated. Next, we have transition words of contrast, like although, despite, however, nevertheless, and so on. So example 1 says, although I was late to work, I still accomplished my goals. So in other words, it's like, okay, I was late to work, but that doesn't mean I can't be productive or I can't accomplish my goals. Example 2 says, you were rude to me, however, I still love you. So instead of saying, you were rude to me, I'm done with you, I'm mad at you, we're saying, you were rude to me, but I still love you. Example 3 says, I'm not the best at drawing, nevertheless, I still try my best. So this sentence is pretty much saying like, hey, I'm not the best at drawing, but instead of giving up and not trying, I'm still gonna try. Next, we have transition words of clarification, like to elaborate, to simplify, in other words, simply put, and so on. So example 1 says, I have 2 small dogs. To elaborate, I have a Chihuahua and a Yorkie. So this sentence is pretty much saying I have 2 small dogs, but let me give you more information on what kind of dogs I have, and that's why it says to elaborate. Example 2 says, I don't like apologizing. In other words, I struggle with accountability. So a better way of saying that somebody doesn't like apologizing, or another way of saying that, is that they struggle with taking accountability. Example 3 says, she is always wearing raggedy clothes. Simply put, she needs better clothes. So we're saying she's always wearing raggedy clothes, but to clarify, we're saying she needs better clothes. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you found this video informative. If you did find this video informative, please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe, or all of the above, and I'll see you next time. Bye.